Hey woodcutters, TopSaw here. This channel is all things wood, and in today's video we're going to knock down a bunch of trees, get a self-loading log truck to load them up, transport the logs to a friend's swing arm mill it into dimensional lumber, bring that dimensional lumber back, and then build a shed out of it. So there's a lot of things going on in this video. It's kind of an all-time dream of mine to actually take logs down on my own property, mill them, and then build a teeny little house out of them. So this should be kind of a fun video, fun for me to document this cool process. So this is a sugar pine coming down right here on a piece of property that I'm developing. The majority of the trees are actually ponderosa pines. This is actually a friend of mine knocking it down. Does a beautiful job felling because it is a bit of a back leaner. And then here it comes, boom. Pretty log, pretty wood in there. This is a self-loading log truck right here. The logger or transporter sits up on that tower, on that crane with the grapple and loads all the logs. There's a couple different dimension logs here, but they're almost all 21s. So this is considered a short load. It is funny that the price of lumber now is higher than it's ever been, and the price of logs is really low. If I were to buy the lumber for this shed, it would cost a fortune. The shed is going to be smaller than the 144 square feet, so you don't need a permit on it. So I don't need a forester to come out and certify and grade the logs, or a lumber grader to come out and grade them. So here we are locking and loading up the lumber. This guy's really a very gifted operator, and then we're going to take these logs over to a friend's mill and then mill them into dimensional lumber. If you're new to this channel, think about subscribing. This channel is all things wood, from tree work to woodwork. And I guess this is a good example video of that. All right, getting the last few logs on the truck, and then from here over to my buddy's house where he has a mill. Here it is, beautiful mill, and he's a great operator of this mill. And then there's a log truck unloading the logs. So we're going to stack the logs there. All of the ends should be painted so that they don't chuck so much, but we're going to mill them pretty quickly. You can see on that load right there is probably about 2,500 to 3,000 board feet of logs. Probably weighs about 30,000 pounds. So there's a lot of wood there, and we ended up taking 2 trips. All right, I'll try and keep the pace of this video going since it's an overview video. So logs are loaded and then on the mill, and here he is cutting out dimensional lumber. Cut a bunch of 2x6 for the rafters, 2x4s for the wall, and 1x by any width dimension we could find, and that's going to be for the sheeting of the walls and the sheeting of the roof. So it's all going to be in pine, which is in a structural lumber, but it's still going to come out pretty solid. Wrap it in Tyvek and shingle it so there's no weather exposure, and then I'm going to put hardy plank around the outside. See how quickly that log is turning into lumber. Really fun process. Just such a cool idea to mill your own lumber. And then I'm pulling it out and stickering it to dry. This really is like a dream come true. I just love this. I love the idea of farm to food kind of idea, logs to lumber. You know, with these outrageous prices of lumber right now and all the supply chain issues, it sure makes you wonder if we were all a little more self-reliant, if we had a few more skills, if we developed our own properties and kept all of the resources there and built our house is out of the resources that were locally supplied right on the property, how much better the whole world would be and how much more self-reliant we would all be. So it's just, I love being part of this. It's just so much fun to knock trees down, mill them out, and then build stuff with them. Loading the lumber up, bring it back across the road, back to my place, and we'll get started building. Here we go. Okay, this is an underground water tank that I put in. I included in a few other videos in developing this property. It's for water storage, and I'm actually going to use it for the foundation for the shed that I'm building. I think it's about 6 foot by 13 feet, something like that. And then there's all of the dimensional lumber that got milled out. I do have power in now, so I got my air compressor for nailing, and I did buy 3 boards of pressure treat Doug fir for the sills. There's still some remaining logs right there that I still need to transport over. And then also I did find a window on sale there. So I think the total cost of those 3 pressure treat in that window is $200. I did pay some transport costs for the log truck, but everything else, all that lumber is basically nothing but hard work. So there's a layout, and we're just going to use those pressure treat and bolt them down to the concrete water tank top. I'm using 3/8 inch by 3 inch red heads and driving them through the wood into the concrete, and then bolting the sill down to that concrete top of the water tank. So there's the sill or the bottom plate all laid out, and then I put the top plate right next to it, and then I do the layout of all the studs, 16 on center, X's marking the side of the line. And that way I'm going to build the walls flat and then tip them up. There's actually not that much room to work here. I got to work in the dirt, but it's actually going to work out okay. One thing about the hand milled lumber is that it actually doesn't have any square ends. So first cut I'm making is actually the bottom of it. And then I'm using my speed square to stay square. And then I got to flip them, then measure the length 92 1/4, and then cross cut those 92 1/4 studs. So I got 92 1/4 inch long stud plus the bottom plate of 1 1/2, double top plates 1 1/2, 1 1/2, so a total of 4 1/2, and then 92 1/4 will put me 96 3/4. So that's 3/4 of an inch over 8 foot. And the reason why that's the case is you can have a 1/2 inch sheetrock ceiling and then a 1/4 inch on your sidewall sheetrock, a 1/4 inch gap off the bottom that you'd cover up with trim. There are still some of the remaining logs to the lumber, to a framed up house. It's getting there. Tip the walls up. I had a guy come over and help me tip the walls up and bolt them down. And it's really coming out nicely. The pine's really nice to work with. It's just drying out quickly. It's not really warping very much. Here I am cutting a 4x6 header. This header is going to go over that one single window. Square cut one end, and then you can just see how beautiful this grain is. Every one of those is a ring, a year of my life. Knowing that this tree was growing in the place where I'm living is kind of cool. And then here I am banging that header in. A little bit of tight fit, had to recut it. And it fits in there pretty good. And then just nailing it in through the studs. Gonna give the window a test try now that I got the whole thing in there. And it looks like the window is gonna work pretty well. Good fit, it'll give me light inside the shed and also a cross breeze. There's a door. I'm gonna use an exterior 36 inch wide door. Made the opening a couple inches wider than that. And then there are the sills with the red head bolts bolted down to hold them down. And then there's the overall shed, looking pretty good. Working on the rafters up above. So those are the 2x6 plumb cuts at the end, and then a bird's mouth to go over the top double plate, and then outriggers around the outside of it. So those outriggers give that gable end an eave, so the ends of the building will be covered from weather, and then the eaves on the sides will also hang over quite a bit and give it cover. Again, I'm going to put shear wall around the outside with 1x, wrap it in Tyvek, and then use the same siding as the house when the house gets built. And then I'll do 1x on the roof, cover that with tar paper and shingles when the house gets shingled. These boards have gone crazy. Here's one right here. I don't know if you could see it, but it's really only one. Right, so there's that one. But you can see how flat all the rest of the ones are. And the stack lumber stayed pretty good too. Here I am cutting the ceiling joist. This pine's easy to cut. I do have some weighing in there, some of that bark. It's only one of the edges. And I actually like the way it looks. These boards aren't square because they're not, bought dimensional lumber. So I'm just cleaning the ends off first. Sometimes taking a little bit of a check off or a knot out. And then flipping them over and then measuring to length. Here I am putting the joists up. It's on top of a double plate. So the way you frame is a single plate on the bottom or a sill and then 2 plates on top. And that top plate ties the walls together. These are the ceiling joists tying the rafters together. So I'm nailing across to the rafters to stiffen it up and also to give me a ceiling in case I want to throw something up there. And I'm also going to tie them to the blocks on the outside as well. These ceiling joists do stiffen the whole box up. I mean, really in construction, there's only 2 shapes, really boxes, squares, and then triangles to give you strength from side to side. So as I kind of bang those ceiling joists in there, I don't know if you saw the building shake a little bit. That's because there's really no lateral strength in there. So if you're not looking at the rafters, you're just looking at that bottom box, you could see how it kind of moves a little bit side to side. So the way you prevent that is with a shear wall. Usually you use like a OSB 4x8 sheet, but I'm going to use all 1x to shear wall this at a 45-degree angle. And what that's going to do is create triangles to prevent that lateral movement. So that's kind of cool. All right, instead of putting shear wall on, I'm going to use these 1x's we milled to give it, shear strength, lateral strength. I'm just going longest corners, running them wild, and then I'm going to cut them off. But it's amazing how well it stiffened the whole thing up. I used a cam strap right there to pull corner to corner to make sure everything was plumb. It's pretty plumb. These boards are pretty straight. The last board I just grabbed, I tried to push some of that bow out, but couldn't get it all out, so I split it. Here I am cutting those wild ends off at the top of the plate and then also along the outside stud there. And then I'm just going to kind of work my way up. I'm actually using wood screws here, 2-inch wood screws, kind of helping me to keep them, be able to pull the warps out of them. And then once I get them on there for a little bit, then I'll go back and then cut them off. I do want to make sure that my offcuts right there are going to be long enough to take the smaller quarter pieces so I can kind of optimize my wood layout. This is kind of a smaller skill saw, which I actually really like a lot, especially for these kind of funny cuts where you're standing on a ladder and a little bit uncomfortable. You certainly always want to make sure safety has to be job number one. You really don't want to use any tools until you've been trained in using them. An injury with a skill saw could be really very catastrophic. Have some clouds in the distance there, actually a little bit of thunder and lightning. Saw one lightning strike, but no rain. It would have been nice to have some rain to knock down some of the dust. And then there it is going on there, cleaning up. And then it's really much more solid with this shear wall 1x pine on it. Much more, I think, than if you had used OSB. Again, I'm going to wrap this with Tyvek and then use hardy board siding to go around the whole thing when the house is sided. So there's the shear wall in pine. Some wains in there. Been a while, then just cut them. Start doing this side. I have one nail there, one screw there, one screw there not set. Right there. Then I have a ratchet strap pulling it until I get it square. So, plumb. Once I get it plumb, it's actually pretty good right there. I'll screw that board in. Coming along. I might end it right here, actually. I don't think I'm going to do any more shear wall until I mill out more 1x pine. That might be a while yet, but I'll be able to finish this part of it. I think I'll wrap it in Tyvek and I'll use the same siding as that goes on the house. It'll be fireproof and matching, so that'll look good. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like. Love to hear your comments below if you've ever built with hand-milled pine. It's kind of cool. I guess something I've always dreamed of. Cutting the trees down, milling them out, and building something out of them. Been a really fun project. Hope you enjoyed it.